Your mics will be on in like a minute. I'll let you know. Go. It's kind of stuck in here. So
leave it? It works?
Yeah.
Oh, even better.
Baird Augustine?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. SV Venture Group.
I can't hear you too well. No, I'm serious.
SV Venture Group? Okay. Got it. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another delicious and nutritious episode of Silicon Zombies Brainwaves on KPCR. That's right. You're listening to Pirate Cat Radio on 101.9 FM KMRT in Santa Cruz and 92.9 FM in Los Gatos. Super psyched to have some wonderful friends on the show today. We're going to be exploring a little bit about international business and all sorts of bridging the gaps. Before we get things kicked off, do want to give a shout out to our fundraiser. That's the Frosty Frequency Fundraiser. So if you're feeling generous and you have a couple extra shekels in your pocket, go ahead and head to donate.kpcr.org and support community radio. Well, it's the moment that we've all been waiting for. We got Jordan Wahbeh, Ryan Baird from SV Venture Group, and Baird Augustine, respectively. Fellas, welcome to the show. Super psyched to have you both here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So, you guys both have pretty fascinating backgrounds that I believe are complementary, and also just maybe to kind of set the table, you could tell the listeners who are listening and also watching a little bit about your background. So, Jordan, let's start with you.
Well, thank you for having me. If you are listening, you can donate in dollars, not in shekels. They're a bit more stable and steady, Mr. Zombie.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm Jordan Wahbeh. I'm with Silicon Valley Venture Group. Also, I'm a partner with a group called Network VC. We are an early stage investment organization. We invest in technology, Series A, occasionally Pre-A. I focus on things that improve the human condition. So you don't have to save the spotted owl, but you have to do something that's useful and productive. Been in the business since 2015.
Wow.
I met this fine person. I want to call him young man, but he's not that young anymore.
We got a couple of grays.
He just reminded me. And I actually met him with Max Shapiro event. And I remember the date. It was a great day to meet you. Thank you for having me. So we're in the Valley. We invest mostly in the U.S., but we have great extensions and network with the Middle East, Korea, South Korea, that is, and other parts of the world. Thanks for having me.
For sure. And Jordan also likewise gets probably some of the best deal flow around. So we'll have to double click on that more later. But Ryan, thank you for joining us on Zombie Brainwaves.
Thanks for having me. This is amazing.
For sure.
My name is Ryan Baird. I run our neo investment bank called Baird Augustine. We were recently awarded from the state of California for our investment banking decorum and some of the innovative things that we're doing in the private placement space. We basically help private companies, startups, and funds raise $100 million rounds plus. And then I also oversee our hedge fund, Asymmetrical Alpha, that I'm really excited about. And lastly, I organize our institutional investing group called Focus on Risk. We started this back in 2009. We host institutional investing events. We've done them in 19 countries, 25 cities all around the world. And we're really excited to really be focusing on Silicon Valley going forward. And we've partnered with a number of the cities here and with the state of California to really help people and help state of California with economic development and workforce development.
First and foremost, I love the name Asymmetrical Alpha. It sounds very clinical, but also it's got a heck of a ring to it. So all the folks that are in the family office space, they want to come to your events because there's knowledge, it's fun, the energy's there. So tell us a little bit about the one you hosted a little while back.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, sure. So we always we stick with a formula of having institutional investors, call it with $100 billion AUM or greater. We'll have elected officials. We'll also get someone from the Mag 7's investment team. And then we want to get a CEO that's taken a company public. And then after that, we really feature founders that are raising $100 million plus rounds or funds, GPs of funds that are raising. And then we also will feature founders that have already had $100 million plus exits.
Okay, so pretty curated.
It's very, very curated. We do tell a lot of people that it's not a great event for them if they're doing kind of smaller stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of family offices in our network are looking to write $5 to $10 million checks.
So let's dive a little bit deeper in that because it feels like there's a shift in the space. How would you characterize it? Are family offices moving away from being LPs? Like they're more hands-on? Are they creating community? What does the space look like?
I think it's a really fascinating space because it's growing very, very quickly. There's actually never been more family offices than today. And there's about 10x the number of family offices than when I was at Morgan Stanley. And we're seeing all kinds of different communities opening up all over the world. The reason why we're focusing on Silicon Valley is because there's just the wealthiest family offices are here. And, we feel like if we can show them institutional, high quality, above average deals, then we'll be able to attract them from all over the world to come here as well.
So, but what are they, and this goes to both you guys, what do they care about? Is it wealth preservation? Is it maybe deal flow?
It really varies from my experience. You have some people, they're so rich that they don't need to take any kind of, crazy risk. They just stick with treasuries and, conservative stocks. And then you have other family offices that are much more aggressive and they're going to have close to 10% of their net worth tied to venture funds or doing direct investments. So it really depends on the family office and their goals.
And how many meme stocks they have in their portfolio. Well, I'm waiting for the Jordan coin. I would invest. I would double down in that.
I wouldn't.
What's interesting is that the head of the family office is terrified that their kids are going to just YOLO into a bunch of meme tokens. So we've been having a lot of conversations with the kids of family offices to try to explain to them the risk curve.
Yeah.
And you really need to start with risk-free, which is US Treasuries, and then go higher in levels of risk from there. And then once they realize that they're taking max risk, you really need to position size those things correctly. If you think something's going to 100x, you don't need to put your whole portfolio in there. You can put 1% of your portfolio, and if you're right, you're going to double your portfolio.
Yeah, sure.
And I think a lot of them don't fully understand how pump and dumps work, and I think explaining that to them and showing them examples of NFTs and some of these other things in previous cycles is really helpful for them to understand the risk that they're taking.
Yeah.
Let me toss a question at Ryan. I want to take your time.
Please.
So is the 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the family office constitution was substantially different than what it is today. Now you have a younger generation, far more involved, bombarded with information and investment opportunities left, right, and so forth. Is that a bigger challenge to manage going forward? Meaning the new generation is a lot more risk, I don't want to say the risk averse, but more interested in the coins and all these unregulated investments. What does that sound?
I mean, I think a lot of people do fall for these types of pump and dumps, and how sophisticated these players are in kind of making a community and putting bots in there and leveraging AI and making people really feel like this community could, be the next, 10,000x or whatever you want to call it. But history teaches us a lot of lessons, and I've been following Bitcoin since 2009. So, I think teaching people about all of the failure in investing, whether it's a meme token or a crypto company or a startup or private equity or commercial real estate, I think those lessons are more valuable than just showcasing someone who hit a lucky lotto ticket and is now in TechCrunch. So
why did those get more visibility though? Like, I'm curious.
Well, media today is all clickbait, basically.
Yeah.
They need to have something shiny for people to click on it. And they've tested these things, millions of times, and they've realized what kind of headlines will get the most clicks, and that's what sells. So you get this kind of cycle, right? And the same thing happens to popular stocks. You have the media who gets paid to write, telling people what they should and shouldn't invest in. It doesn't make sense at all. If the media knew how to invest, they would be investors. They wouldn't be in media.
But yet, those two are becoming kind of one and the same now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of people reading the media and taking it for face value. And I think, again, our group is called Focus on Risk. I try to make that the point of a lot of my conversations, because I think people are, you can't control your profit. A lot of people, they think, oh, I'm going to use technical analysis or fundamental analysis.
Or uncorrelated assets.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to, jump into some meme coin because so-and-so on Twitter said it's going up. So, if you can just focus on what you can control, which is your risk, you have much deeper conversations about investing versus talking about, did you see OpenAI's recent valuation or whatever?
I want to play a quick clip from Ray Dalio, who I'm sure you're probably a big fan of, and kind of see what you guys think.
You've got a table in the book.
This is Free
where
Bird.
You look at central government debt level to deficit level across these major markets. So you've got the U.S., Japan, China, France, Germany, and the UK. And the U.S. is running a deficit 7% of GDP. So the federal government is spending more than it makes at a level that's about 7% of the total size of the economy in the United States, which is the highest of all of these industrialized markets. Second is France at 6%. Third is the UK at 6% as well. And then China at 5%. And then these countries are all approaching 100% debt to GDP. Japan obviously is at 215%. So from a relative perspective, one of the points that I've heard a lot of people make is everyone's got this problem. Everyone's got rampant spending.
So that was
everyone's got
actually all Free Bird, but Ray Dalio is in there too, somewhere. I mean, when we think about risk, to your point earlier, it's strange because, like, if we're running at 6% and we need to be, or 7%, we need to be getting closer to like 3%. Are these bonds still a good move, even though they appear to be risk off? Or I mean, what are you recommending?
Well, it really depends on your time frame and your risk tolerance.
Right.
I saw a guy who runs a very large hedge fund, and he was talking about buying bonds because he doesn't think that you're going to be able to get this kind of yield in the future, and that interest rates are going to go much lower, which is kind of an interesting take. But if the government can cut spending and increase revenues, we grow our way out of this. If they can't do that, then they have to monetize the debt,
but that puts us in a weird kind of a dollar spiral.
Dollars worth less, and there's all kinds of issues that come with that. What Freeberg was alluding to is, yes, the U.S. situation is bad, but most of the first world countries are worse, and that's why we're seeing the dollar strengthen while these other currencies get weaker. And I have no idea what this administration is going to do to the dollar, but I think it's something that people should be watching. The media was saying that the demise of the dollar was near, and that, dollar is going to be worthless and inflation is rampant, but dollar's been getting stronger. And you just have to look at the chart and compare it to a basket of other currencies. It's called the Dixie, the DXY. And, the dollar's been getting stronger because, like Friedberg said, the other countries, they just have worse debt levels. They don't have any real way to grow out of it. Some of them have declining aging population. Japan, right?
Japan owns like a whole bunch of our T-bills as well.
Yeah. Well, because Japan's is basically selling their bonds and then buying U.S. Treasuries with the money.
Yeah, it's like a game of hide the cheese.
Yeah,
a little bit. Speaking of which, what do you think about the space at large, Jordan? If we consider cross-border, we know that some of the challenges are, IP laws or maybe repatriation of dollars after you have a liquidity event. Since you are kind of one of the main bridges for global capital into the Bay Area, how are you advising your teams and your portfolio companies strategically around taking dollars from outside the U.S.? Whew. I know, and all in like 15 seconds, if you could.
Very carefully.
Yeah.
I used up 2 seconds. You have 14 left.
Okay.
I know it's not just the IP, but there's quite a bit of capital that makes its way around 4 or 5 different spots before it lands in you. And if you're not careful where the money is landed, where the CFIUS regulations comes in.
This is like KYC stuff?
KYC 3 levels beyond. The last first salvo into this was the Mueller report, where it showed some international investments coming into the U.S. and that kind of poisoned the pool for a lot of folks. Mm-hmm. Then there's some other countries that are trying to get out of the notion that they are in the gray market, not the white market, money laundering, what have you.
What countries are on that list?
I don't want to say. I value my life.
All right, okay.
But the other piece of it is CFIUS doesn't allow you to have controlling percentages of the company if you are in a certain countries, and there's a large number of those depending on the technology.
Right.
But there's ways to manage this such that you are not breaking the law. You're able to do an IPO, you're able to comply with some SEC regulations without limiting yourself from taking some actual capital from some of these countries. However, with the advent of AI and the more scrutiny we have, especially with the competition of coming from China, DeepSeek and so forth, you have to be super careful who is investing in your company, especially if you're in the deep tech space.
So deep, you're talking about like science, like chemistry and physics, but also like maybe telecom and infrastructure.
Materials, ports, transportation, semiconductor, quantum. The list is big.
Mm-hmm.
A good example is we have a company that we like. They are in the business of helping firefighters figure out who's in the burning building up and down, side to side, without having to use GPS. One of his main concerns is, I want to make sure who I take money from is not on the bad list, because I'm selling directly to the DoD, to the Air Force, to that's a benign situation. Another company we love, Ambient Scientific, we're working with them. They're a spectacular semiconductor company in the AI business. We're very careful who we are selling to and what we're selling, because at some point that's going to come in.
Yeah.
So capital from overseas is great. I was in Saudi in October, and we have connections in Dubai and other places. There's a great influx of capital coming to the valley looking for venture investments. We're past COVID, definitely. It's behind us. There's no even remnants of it. And the market is picking up on the venture space, independent of what everybody else is telling you. So a lot of foreign capital is coming in looking for you, Mr. Startup, to invest in, or you, Mr. GP, to put money in your fund.
Yeah. And is that just because it seems the opportunities abroad just are not as attractive, and because it doesn't seem like that has changed. How is that different from the last 6, 12, 18 months?
Good question. In 2023, the Bay Area raised more capital for funds than the next 10 markets combined.
Wow.
So what does that say to me? That says, holy Christmas. I'm not cursing. You almost got me there. He gave me a look. You see the look? He's like,
Jordan.
The ability to raise that kind of capital, better than the 10 combined, tells you there's a lot of interest from LPs overseas to inject capital into the fund, the venture groups over here, because the talent is here, the environment is here, and COVID have taught us that it is physical. We thought it's going to be remote. Everybody's going to become like the Valley. Everybody's on Zoom, on Teams. It didn't work.
There was a pullback, I guess, right?
And there was no that chemistry to create that momentum didn't materialize. But now the momentum is back in the Valley, and most of the capital is looking for that juice.
Ryan, if you're running the show in one of these countries, and rather than have this capital leave back to the U.S., don't you want to create something that's sustainable? I mean, I know this is like a kind of a tricky question, but how do you create the ecosystem that is self-sustaining, that has the early stage investors that are comfortable with risk, maybe the education that you can tap into, maybe maybe branding to focus on, I know Turkey is doing a lot in medical tourism. How do you think about this strategically if you're leading a country to keep the wealth where it's at?
I think the problem with a lot of these countries is that there's a brain drain and that their smartest talent ends up coming to Silicon Valley. I've been approached by a number of government agencies to help them bring Silicon Valley to their home country. And I just told them I'd save them a bunch of money and tell them the answer. And the answer is there's 380 publicly traded companies in Silicon Valley that are all hiring the best talent from all around the world, relocating people here every single week. When you do global venture and you start going to all of these major ecosystems, you start to realize that the ideas are the same pretty much everywhere. Sure, they might have a different feature here and there, but the core concepts are pretty much spread everywhere. The biggest difference is the team slide.
Jordan disagrees.
I'm being prickly now. Go ahead.
The biggest difference is the team slide. And when you look at the Silicon Valley team, they have a decade of experience at some of the Fortune 10 companies. You compare that with a startup that might even have a little bit of extra traction, and who do you want to invest with? If you look at where these biggest outcomes are coming from, they're continuing to come from Silicon Valley, led by immigrants that immigrate here. And when I was younger, I used to think that Silicon Valley was going to be everywhere. That's why
you're still young, man.
That's why I wanted to do global venture. But once I started doing it, I realized that the team slide is just 10x better in Silicon Valley, if not greater. If you find a really, really awesome team, I mean, you're talking about 100x better. And the connections in Silicon Valley, the access to capital in Silicon Valley, the mentor network and advisors that you can just get from going to a coffee shop is unparalleled. And, venture is one of these asset classes. You can put as much money in it as you want. It doesn't increase the number of outcomes. So a lot of people did a lot of these funds where they were investing in their college that they graduated from, or, some region that they were specifically kind of bullish on. And we saw a lot of those funds perform in the absolute bottom 10%. Yeah. And the emerging managers in Silicon Valley that caught the unicorns here, or some, least decent outcomes, those are the funds that are going to be able to raise their third and fourth fund.
Well, just like devil's advocate, and I think generally speaking, you're right, Ryan. However, there's folks like Masa who are playing at the very top, and Travis Kalanick from Uber is famous for saying, "Hey, we didn't take the Masa money because he was investing in all of our competitors and using the information through his due diligence to provide that." So, like, promiscuous investor, I think is the word he used. So, I mean, maybe at the very top of the mark, you can, at the very top of the totem pole, you can mess with the markets. But generally speaking, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand that Masa, with Vision Fund, the strategy was God's strategy. And that is you give them so much money that they can market and expand and beat everyone else that doesn't have the same resources.
Yeah.
So
Saturate.
That strategy, when you have 100 billion to deploy or whatever funds he's on now, it could work.
Yeah.
We've seen it work very, very well, and we've seen some hiccups with WeWork.
Hiccups?
That's.
I mean, they sold
putting
WeWork.
it lightly. I don't think they ever turned a profit.
Is it okay to say throw ups or is it cursing?
They marketed WeWork as an AI company, and the report from the AI was that they needed to refill the coffee at 9 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could have told you that just by going to WeWork and not having coffee at 9 a.m.
Right.
You don't need the AI and the hundreds of millions of dollars they spent to figure out they needed more coffee.
We're gonna toss it over to Jordan, who I think he's about to be prickly. Go ahead, Jordan.
No, I was born prickly.
Okay.
So the team is really the heart of the matter. But if you're an athlete, and most of us have been in teams and so forth, if you're playing against a very strong team, you will definitely get better. If you're playing against a mediocre team, you may cruise by. The culture, the environment, everything that Ryan spoke of, really compel anybody to either compete or get out. Very simple in the Valley. The coffee shop, everything he said is spot on, but fundamentally, when you walk into the Valley, there's a sense of you need to do stuff or move out.
I think I know the euphemism you're referring to.
Yeah.
Thank you for being diplomatic.
I talked to hundreds of companies, literally hundreds of companies, a good portion of them from overseas. And when they come over here and we describe what's going to take to compete in here, you can tell some of them like, what about work-life balance? It isn't about work-life balance. It's about the passion, and the blood on your veins becomes about what you want to do. The same company, Ambient Scientific, I talked to, I was just talking to the CEO 2 hours ago. We covered 12 things in the span of an hour. And we didn't skip a beat. And he was plugged in on everything. And it was 12 different things from different topics. And tomorrow he's getting on a plane to fly for about 10 days. And in the process of flying, he scheduled 3 meetings. And so what I'm saying is the work ethics isn't just part of your breeding in the Valley. When you see Nick, when you see Ryan doing this, you're naturally going to do it.
Yeah.
The other part is talent. There's an incredible amount of talent. If you want to know how to do something right, you're going to go to somebody who's done it 10 times. Say, how do I do it right? And there's 100 people who've done it right. There's tons of exits, lots of unicorns, lots of IPO. I will speak about Stanford X, the Start X. The best reason they are very good because they have 5,000 successful entrepreneurs who've done it. And as a
The
result,
playbook's been written.
5,000 times.
Yeah.
Last but not least, there's a sense of pride. This is Silicon Valley. We love it. We want to make it better.
Yeah.
But initially, a lot of countries are trying to duplicate the Valley. That's the wrong approach. You cannot duplicate democracy in your country. You cannot duplicate Silicon Valley in your country. You have to create your version of the Valley. And the goal isn't to be like the Valley. The goal is to be successful.
But you can learn
A
from
ton.
the lessons here that have made it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you come to the Valley, take pictures on an accelerator, go back and build one just like it and put cool pictures and nice pictures on the walls and cushiony things. That doesn't make a successful accelerator. What makes it is the understanding that you need to have your own talent in-house, and that's why you said train brain. That's spot on.
Have you seen any organizations or countries successfully, I don't say replicate, but create their own version of the Valley that maintains that energy, that ethos, that local flavor, but also create something sustainable?
Replicate is probably not the optimal word I would use. Turkey is doing a decent job creating that core seed, gooey stuff that's going to create
The nucleus.
The nucleus.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's support from the government, I'm sure, is important in there too.
It's partially the government, but there is passion with the Turkish founders and the investors. They figured out that they can replicate it, so we're going to create something in our own. Dubai, one of my favorite countries, they have 5 or 6 different spots that seem to be breaking through. Yeah, China is not doing bad. China is doing really good. Look at the stuff that's coming out of there, guys. I love the United States, but China is competing, and they're competing big.
That's good for everybody, theoretically, right?
Good for everybody.
But it's interesting, like this whole, like the irony is not lost on us that OpenAI, Elon put the first $50 million in. They changed from a nonprofit to a for-profit, and then the DeepSeek team, from what I understand, largely trained their model on OpenAI. In fact, if you asked it originally, the model had even said that it's part of that model. So do you think that kind of puts him on Sam Altman on his hind heels?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I worked at Cisco, Chambers used to say, you don't want to be number one 90% of the market. You want to be number one in 30, 70, 75, because if you don't have competition, you're going to go like that speaker did.
Yeah. Yeah. Competition's for losers, right? That's what Peter Thiel says.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, you want to do a station ID. You're listening to Silicon Zombies Brainwaves, where we bring you the best brains from the Bay to beyond. That's 92.9 FM, KPCR, and then 101.9 FM in Santa Cruz, KMRT. So if you're just tuning in, we got Ryan Baird, we got Jordan Wahbeh, and we're right in the thick of things. We're exploring international investments and how to recreate communities and ecosystems of success. So back to the conversation, Jordan. If you're Sam Altman, how do you close the deal for the $40 billion that he's trying to raise right now? I think he's in Washington. I know he's talking to family offices from all around the world. How do you make the case when it seems to me that all these other big players building these foundational models they're doing scorched earth? I think Zuckerberg's doing the same thing. How do you approach that?
I don't know. I'm not him. I'm glad I'm not him.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress, right?
No, I would love to be him.
Okay.
I'll take the stress and I'll be him. Absolutely. I'll hire somebody to take care of my stress for me. I don't know what the right answer is, Nick, but AI is so early right now. People think it's peaking. It's not even close to peaking. I think if it's a baby, it's just been just stuck to the walls.
So if this is baseball, has the game even started? Are we in inning 2 or 3?
I think we're even in the spring camp.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Crazy.
Wait. It came in November, a year plus ago, and then a year after, everybody has something, and then 3 months after, there's big competition from the other side. It's like,
when you say it came in November, I mean
November
the
23.
DeepMind came out. White paper came out in 2017, right?
That's
Transformers. I mean, all this is built on Transformers, isn't it? Or maybe not.
The concept of what we're talking about when we say AI, and I hopefully Ryan agrees with me, it isn't the history sense, the wheel and the fire and all this stuff. It's the access to AI for the common person. And that's what happened in November 23. It's like, hey, you have access. And boom, it became a thing. Then a few months later, someone came up with another one and a third one, and everybody has one. And then 2 weeks later, somebody from overseas says, hey, I got something better.
And wipes out $1 trillion of market cap.
Cheaper, faster, quicker. Yeah. You don't need to.
Ryan,
that's just the beginning.
Did you buy the dip?
I definitely bought the dip. I mean, this was a known unknown, right?
Nice.
We knew this was going to get faster, cheaper, better.
Yeah.
So, the people that sold, I'm just like, why are you selling? We knew this was going to happen. We are in an exponential leap forward in technology, and it's hard to always know exactly kind of what part you are on the curve. But when you zoom out, things are getting exponentially better all the time. And one comment on the DeepSeek, I think it's pretty clear that they lied about what kind of money they put into this project.
$6 million was not.
If you look at NVIDIA sales in Singapore went from like almost nothing to $8 billion or $10 billion. Correct me on it's somewhere around there. It's insane.
Yeah.
And you can just tell that China was buying.
Yeah, that all stayed in Singapore, right?
Through that. Yeah, exactly. So I do think what they did is super interesting, but I do believe that that the US is still leading the world in AI.
We are, absolutely, no doubt about this. Let's pretend the name is not China and our name is not the US, and you have these two players competing, and then somebody comes in with DeepSeek and hits the first player. Boom. You're observer, you're spectator. What do you say? Like, ha! Look at them. You know, whether it's 5 million or 50 million, they made it. They created a cheaper, lower cost, blah 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 solution, which is good for everybody, especially the US consumer, because I can get it not for $200 now. I can get it almost for free. I'm not telling you to do DeepSeek, because whatever you put in there is going straight to China before you even see it. But do you think a third player will not come in, and a fourth player, and a fifth player? You know they're coming.
And you can run it for like meaningfully. They said it was trained for $6 million for the final test run, and Sam reportedly said that GPT-5 it cost him like $1 billion, but I think the final run is like in the like 60 to 100 million as opposed to $1 billion. But that's still like a huge difference.
The first cloud construction, remember the cloud? It was very expensive, and now you can have your own cloud, darn cloud if you want for a few hundred. So the cost is going to be lower and lower because the foundation is there.
Do you think that there is really no long-term sustainable moat in building these foundational models? Like if all of that crashes, then it'll be like these huge trees in the forest.
What do you mean crash?
Well, imagine you're an investor that gave hundreds of millions, maybe more, to OpenAI, and all of a sudden you've got DeepSeek, you've got Llama from Meta, and the defensibility goes out the window. I mean, what happens to all that money? Does it just disappear? I use the metaphor of the tree because if it crashes and that tree dies, maybe it's the application layer, the wrapper, that ends up having a lot of the value that comes from the nutrients of that tree. Which is ironic because originally they said the wrapper was like going to be easily replaced and really hold no meaningful long-term value. But maybe it's the application layer where people are interacting. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be whoever can collect the most data out of these things.
Okay.
I think Grok XAI is super interesting. They're getting all of that data from X, and a lot of people are saying they'd like to use it because they have more real-time information than on some of these other players that I think the free version might be like capped in time or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how it works. But it's a race to the bottom when it comes to a lot of these things. A lot of these startups that are out there right now too are completely dead. I think you can just use OpenAI or one of these other players to do what they're trying to do. Honestly, I think we're in a race for AGI. I think this Gen AI layer is super interesting. It's creating a productivity boom that is starting to show up in Wall Street earnings. But OpenAI is trying to solve AGI.
Or ASI.
Yeah.
Super intelligence.
Yeah. So is the AI boom a bubble? No, I think all of this investment is going to keep happening until we reach this super intelligence. And it's one of the most exciting things that's ever happened.
Don't you think it's important to, and not to put you on the spot, but I feel like these terms are kind of thrown around a lot. It's like if a year or two ago people saw what these models were performing, especially on these benchmarks, then they would probably look at that and see or think that this is AGI. But it almost feels like we continue to move the goalpost. And maybe it's just because like if we are in this space, it's just like could be overwhelming. Like the Turing test, that's like when you can trick a human, and maybe the collective human consciousness is not able to truly acknowledge that, just because it would be such a monumental shift in society or for humans. I don't have an answer for that. I was just kind of like thinking out loud. Are we moving the goalpost?
All the time,
Okay.
almost monthly. I mean, the compute power, the data, the training. The analogy I use, which is a very old analogy, is when cars became cars back in the turn of the century, there were hundreds of companies, literally hundreds. Like, you look at the list, there was 300 and some companies. Over the span of 20, 30 years, it's crunched down to 30, and now even more. This business of AI is going to evolve to a point where it's going to be a commodity, and there's going to be the super, and the super square, and the super whatever, is going to continue to grow at a very exponential pace, except at some point, the enterprise is going to say, I'm good with this. You can be super 10 times, I'm fine. I'm going to run my business based on this standard super AI model, and I'm going to be okay with it. The other piece is the laws of nature is going to have to slow us down. Power, energy, and all the consequences of running all these models, and what does that do to us as people? And at some point, people are going to say, I think I'm fine. Elon Musk want to die in space? That's fine. He can do that. But not everybody else wants to do that, right? Not everybody else wants to go to Mars. So there'll be a class of people who want to go to Mars with AI, and some people, like the average, which was like I am, I'm good. I can't do it.
It's funny you said that, Jordan. Somebody asked Elon, like, where do you want to die? He goes, I want to die on Mars. Hopefully not on impact.
Well, the last time they asked him, he says his ideal is to be in a spacesuit in space.
Say one more time.
I think I saw it. He said he wants to be in a spacesuit in space. He wants to die in a spacesuit in outer space.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he's given up on going to Mars, but
okay. Yeah. What kind of companies are you seeing, Ryan, that are like really unique? Any shout outs that you want to give? Especially in like the energy space, because that does seem to be something of like a very important element as we continue to scale, as we continue to compete on a global level.
Yeah, there's a company here in Santa Clara called Oklo, and they're doing small nuclear reactors.
Wow.
And
how small are we talking? Like, in my pocket small? Or?
I don't think it's that small, but
Okay.
I think it's, smaller than this room.
Wow.
And
small car size.
Okay.
Small car size, yeah. And fun fact, one reason that there's all of these companies that require a lot of power are in Santa Clara is because Santa Clara has the cheapest energy in the Bay Area. They have their own power grid and they don't rely on PG&E. So while the rest of the Bay Area goes through blackouts, Santa Clara is up and running.
Forget blackouts. The price of electricity has skyrocketed, my friend.
Yeah, so I think we're going to need to see some of these small nuclear reactors start getting more widely distributed. And then I also think wave power is going to be extremely useful for people that live on the coast. That's a lot of people. Ocean waves,
okay.
Runs 24/7, don't need to worry about the sun
or the wind,
and it just keeps cranking. It can't go too far from the coast, but a lot of people live near the coast. So
yeah.
There's some really interesting companies that are starting off in that space.
What stage is the nuclear power company?
It's a publicly traded company. I think it hit around $10 billion today, actually. There's a few different nuclear companies out there that are doing this kind of stuff, but the one in Silicon Valley, also Sam Altman's on their board, is the one I would tell people to take a look at. It's Oklo, OKLO.
What does that tell you as a listener? If Sam and the likes of Sam are sitting on energy companies,
yeah, that's a crucial piece of the pie.
It's the only piece of the pie. I mean,
yeah.
you can do the best NVIDIA chips without the energy to power it. You got nowhere to go.
Yeah, so we had a fella on the show a while ago, Troy Helming, whom you guys probably both know. In fact, he just won first place at the Startup World Cup a few months back, and so he's he has a really cool background in photovoltaics and sold created a unicorn and sold to the Italian government, I believe. But now he's building underground hole boring machines. Because this will be like the future of wastewater, internet, human transportation.
He's burning his way through, right?
Yeah. I was asking him, I was like, how does it work? He's like, well, it's essentially like lightsabers that are pulverizing the shale and all the rest, and then uses a Mandalorian jetpack to like shoot all the stuff out. You know what's kind of crazy? I was just reading about this this ecosystem for transferring information before the internet. And it was actual tubes, vacuum tubes, and they would fly around. It was about this large, and they would fly around at like 30 miles an hour. And you could take it, and I think they still use it in like some universities and stuff, but they had to shut it down. And it was funny because like the French, they would this is in Paris, they would, to figure out where it got lodged, because sometimes it didn't work perfectly, right?
Uh-huh.
They would shoot down the tube and then listen to it, and then once it hit, they're like, oh well, that is probably half a kilometer, whatever, and then like go figure it out. And then the Germans, likewise, sometimes the pipes would freeze, and so they would pour cheap wine down the. It's a waste of
Cheap wine.
It's a waste of wine. But anyways, it's interesting because it's like if we think about like the infrastructure of a data packet,
Mm-hmm.
similar situation.
It is.
It
is. The winner of the World Cup, I saw him present a few times. It is really a creative, innovative way to do things. It brings memories of the Empire Strikes Back and how they. But why not, right? Why not engage in a technology that is completely out there? Because what we've been doing for the last 2,000 years is clearly not working.
How do we know it's not working?
We tried to drill tunnels for the last 300-400 years, and you see the joke where it's not working, or it takes $1 billion to make a 3-4 mile tunnel, and all these.
Well,
things.
that's just like government inefficiency. Which, as a libertarian, don't get me started.
Did we have to go there, Mr. Dog? I mean, Mr. Nick.
Well, you said no politics, so naturally, just dive right in.
But it's nice to see that the winner of the World Cup wasn't a SaaS company or a traditional, typical. It was something that's completely out of left field.
Yeah.
And in my humble opinion, what he did is going to be the beginning of a brand new industry.
Wow. Yeah, they're publicly registered utility in like almost all 50 states. It does seem to be that there's a reaction, and Mark Andreessen is famous for saying that the software is eating the world. Maybe the appetite is driven by AI, but maybe we're shifting towards like the tangible, like something in our hands that we could feel. That it's like the infrastructure, like the picks and shovels that are becoming like the next big winner.
Well, AI is an evolution of software, no? It's the next
chapter.
Yeah,
right.
I think.
Yeah.
I think. We'll see. Hopefully it's going to go well. With respect to international capital, AI is going to drive more and more capital to come here.
Because it's getting cheaper, which means there's more. And it kind of to your point earlier, why you bought the dip, because you saw the writing on the wall, right, Ryan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're going to see a lot of AI capital come here. We've already been seeing some of these companies that are going public in Tokyo wanting to come here and partner up with a GP and invest in Silicon Valley AI companies.
Why is that? Why here?
We have the best talent. We have the best talent here.
Again,
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, and I think going public in Tokyo is kind of like raising a Series A here. So,
from a capital amount perspective.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense for them to. I mean, they know the Japanese market, so I think it makes a lot of sense for them to want to invest here.
So, Nick, the rest of the world was sort of catching up with the US in terms of technology and software. And this AI thing just pushed us up 5 levels up.
Yeah.
And I hate to be an arrogant guy, but the center of AI is right here, like physically as we speak. You're in Los Gatos, Palo Alto is 25 miles away.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the Valley went from just a venture capital to the AI capital.
Yeah, so it's like you're saying that's the fuel, but it's not just the fuel now, but it's like the entire stack, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Ryan, you're right around the corner. You're a Los Gatos guy.
Yeah.
Nice. In fact, I think you also went to San Jose State.
I did go to San Jose State. Yeah.
Yeah, go Spartans.
Go Spartans.
There we go.
Hey. Chiefs. This weekend it's the Chiefs and the Chiefs only.
Oh my God. It's what you
Don't tell me you're a Philly guy, are you?
Travis Kelce or something?
No, I won the 3-peat. And they're in red, so they look like the Niners, so we'll just fake it.
You got to squint and just pretend.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jordan's not for Philly, but I think they're the first team, the Chiefs, to win 3 times in a row.
Yeah,
Is that
about to.
Or something?
About to.
Oh, okay. I see.
So if they do it, boom, history is made.
Got it. Yeah. Speaking of making history, this energy war does seem to be kind of a unique chapter of history, right? So China, as I understand, has over 400 different nuclear facilities that they're building, so strongly subsidized by the U.S. government. Maybe we'll be in a similar boat as far as support from the government.
You mean subsidized by the Chinese government?
Well, yeah, you didn't think that the U.S. that the American government would be able.
Oh, that's what you said.
No, I did not. Did I? We're gonna have to roll. Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, let's review
Well, it's a
this.
good thing we're not live.
Good thing we're not live. You're listening. Don't pay attention.
Okay. Well, thank you for keeping me honest here.
No, it's all good. Yes.
So but if we can, if the U.S. government will support our, the American entrepreneurs, maybe it is interesting, right? Because traditionally, it's like when the government gets involved, it slows things down. But maybe at this level of support, and capital, and integration, and regulations, it is important to have a partner at that level. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I think Silicon Valley deeply understands the power needs that we're going to need for AGI. And I actually think this administration understands it. I don't know if they fully understand it, but we are going to see not just nuclear, but all different types of power being explored. And we're going to see the costs of a lot of these power sources continue to come down. It's funny, when I was graduating from college, Morgan Stanley had a $500 a barrel price target for oil. People thought we were going to be using corn to make ethanol. And, over time, drilling has gotten better. The way that they can find oil has gotten better. Pretty much across the entire process has gotten better.
I mean, less damaging ecologically.
The whole thing.
Oh,
And that's why we have oil that's under $100 a barrel. And if the U.S. cuts a lot of regulation and starts drilling, I think we can see energy prices fall, and that will help with inflation.
Yeah, so maybe hopefully a target of 2 cents per kilowatt per hour or something. That would be ideal. It's on the horizon, I would say.
Does PG&E know about that?
Oh yeah, I don't think they're in a position to.
My power bill tripled in the last 8 months.
Are you just in the hot tub every day? Or
I wish. I think I'm getting better electricity. I think I'm getting some cleaner. Maybe it's got some color in it. I'm just not seeing
I
it.
can see Jordan in the hot tub with a daiquiri,
But I'm saying,
solving world peace.
but the price per kilowatt has gone up substantially.
Yeah.
The PG&E.
Yeah.
2 days ago, the administration or President Trump signed an executive order to create a U.S. sovereign fund, and that sounded weird, surprising, but then natural. And
The weird that we don't have one already.
yes,
Yeah.
The statement was, when we created the COVID vaccine, we gave all this money to all these companies, and what can we have given that out of a sovereign fund and celebrating the success of it, which is a good play for energy. It's a good play for all the innovation we want to do. Unfortunately, it may not come down to the $3, $4, $5, $10 million fund. It's going to raise. It's going to be for substantially more.
Unless that's part of the mandate.
Regardless, I think the process is just kick-started, and that's good for the American ecosystem, if you want to call it that.
Ryan, you look like you wanted to hop in a second ago.
I mean, I think this U.S. sovereign fund is extremely bullish for many markets, including Bitcoin and the stock market. The people that they're talking about to be involved with this are all very pro blockchain. And if our sovereign wealth fund takes a position and shares that with the rest of the world, you're going to see other countries
Follow suit.
If not follow suit, at least start evaluating Bitcoin. And I think that's really exciting. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Jordan.
I don't want to say anything about the Bitcoin because we're not good friends. But I think
Wait, you and Bitcoin are not good friends?
no, we had a fight a few weeks
Okay.
ago. We're still reeling over that.
Okay.
But the idea of a sovereign wealth fund that will invest in a wide range of things, typically fast-growing, high potential, so much like any fund
Right.
would. Not only would it make us more competitive because we rely less on grants, we're going to have a steady source of capital that would fund the next generation or the next stage, but it's also going to put us in a position to compete with other sovereign wealth funds worldwide.
Mm.
And if you look at the Saudi one, it's one of the largest ones in the world. And they don't invest in Series A and Series B. They invest in big, substantial, large projects, dams, huge buildings, constructions. Hopefully ours would have a big portion of it focus on technology and on the innovation that can either help us in a crisis like COVID, or help us in a need like energy, or help us in the $500 billion AI fund, right?
Yeah. Like I said, that this would be very bullish for markets, having the U.S. starting to buy assets. And to echo Jordan, I think a lot of it would go to infrastructure projects. And again, if we can reduce regulation and start getting some of these things done, I wouldn't be surprised to see some very large infrastructure projects in the United States. You go to places like Saudi and you see their 2030 vision. You see what's happened in Dubai. And, I just really wish, I really do hope that the US does get back to doing large infrastructure projects, or even like a giant statue or something. Just do something amazing.
Giant statue of Jordan, just like flexing.
Yeah.
No, I would go like that.
Okay. But ironically, like the New Deal with FDR, that kind of bailed us out of a lot of economic problems back in the day. I mean, that's when we just threw labor at it because there were so many people that were out of work.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like we've got kind of a unique challenge where labor is essentially, with the convergence of AI and robotics, going to essentially maybe kind of be a lot less utility at a macro level, right?
That's a great thought, Nick. The New Deal not only employed hundreds of thousands of people, but it leveled up the skill set.
Mm.
It brought the whole society up from just to something substantial because they had to learn skills and this could create, and with all due respect to the American educational system, could create a need to acquire higher levels of skills and talent within the United States people and allow us to even compete that much more. We have great talent, but also we have a significant percent of the population that isn't competitive worldwide. And
even though we're spending like a hellacious amount on education, like 6x more than the next country, but we're still like 30th or 40th as far as like literacy and mathematics.
The numbers are even worse, but
Wow.
yes.
Okay.
It's we're a very diverse country with a lot of intricate parts. But what I'm trying to say is creating these large projects, not just to employ people, but to level up the level of skills that we want to acquire. There's a lot of great, intelligent, smart people in the entire country. We just need to give them a chance to get involved and get engaged without coming to Silicon Valley because the price of housing here is crazy.
Yeah. So guys, we got about a minute or two left. Thank you both. This has been super fun. I do want to give a shout out again to the Frosty Frequency fundraiser. So if you're feeling generous, go to donate.kpcr and support local radio. And while we got you guys here, obviously we want the zombie community to be helpful, to be valuable. Ryan, maybe can you spell your name for folks so they can connect with you on LinkedIn, or perhaps there's a website that you'd like to share with so we can support that as well.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Baird, Baird. You can find me on all social media. The institutional investment group that I run for accredited investors is called Focus on Risk. We're on all platforms, but the majority of the community is actually on Facebook.
Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I'm Jordan Wahbeh. Jordan like the river. Wahbeh is WAHB as in Baker, EH. Find me on LinkedIn, and I usually engage with all conversations. Silicon Valley Venture Group and Network VC syndication. And we're in the Valley, so find us where Nick is. You will always find us.
Excuse me. And also, thank you both for that.
Thank you for having us.
And also, I think there's an upcoming event you guys are hosting, or maybe in a few months out. Do you want to give a shout out for that?
We don't have a full date yet, but we're going to be hosting the Silicon Valley Economic Forum. I'm super excited about it. We're going to aim to have over $1 trillion AUM there, and should be a lot of fun.
Wow. Excellent. Well, thank you, fellas, both. Awesome to have you here. Thank you, Sophie, for joining us in the studio. And for more of the best brains, check out siliconzombies.com. And until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. You've been listening to Brainwaves on 92.9 FM. That's right, Pirate Cat Radio in Los Gatos, and 101.9 FM KMRT in Santa Cruz. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Good band.